So the astrology of the week of 30 August 2021 to September 5th, 2021, or 5 September 21 is a week heavily keyed to Mercury and what Mercury can do. And that's because Mercury enters Libra this week, and Mercury perfects that air trine with Saturn this week. And we think about Mercury signifying thought, talking, language, wordplay, idea formulation. All of those things are now activated. So let's get into the astrology. I'm S.J. Anderson. Thank you for being here. I am an astrologer, a tarot reader, a cartomancer. This is my channel. I do weekly videos here about the astrology of a given week. I also talk about other topics in shorter videos that I've been releasing every Thursday, so look out for those. And in this video, what I'll do is first talk about planetary aspects, sign changes, stations, if there are any. There are no stations this week. I will talk about then, second thing, moon sign changes, what the moon's doing, how sensitive or the condition of the moon, how sensitive the moon is. The moon is always sensitive, but the context of the moon's sensitivity. There's a horn honking where I am. Just excuse the horn, I'm gonna keep the recording going. And then the other thing, the third thing I'll do is in chronological order, I will check out charts that I'm interested in this week, the kind of highlights of the week, transit-wise. We'll dig deep into some charts, and then finally I'll do a tarot reading, a cartomancy reading to add some additional symbols. So stay tuned for that. So my head's still in mutable season. I'm still thinking about this transiting stellium we have in Virgo, the transition season between the summer, the vacations, the getting out into the world, and now we're moving back into the fall in the Northern Hemisphere, and the changes that Virgo season portends or brings. I think about growing up, there was going for school shopping, for supplies, for clothes, for things that we needed for school. So it was kind of a moment of preparation, and that's been my delineation here the last few weeks, because Mars is in Virgo. Mars is action. Mercury is that detailed orientation, that planning, that kind of taking stock. And when you combine those, you see this even back into ancient texts as being planning energy. So I've been focused on that, planning amongst the shift with this triple Virgo energy. The other thing I've been thinking about is the earth element. And we've had some just nature, getting into nature. I enjoyed some of that this week. I was out in a park here in the city that I'm in, beautiful parks, and just out there sitting in the sun and with people. People love nature, I've just noticed. It's a natural fit, like a glove, human beings and getting into nature. So thinking about doing some of that. But yeah, let's jump in here. I'm excited about the astrology as always, and each week has its own tenor and flavor and uniqueness, and this week is no different. So that first thing here, let's jump into the planetary aspects, and it's all about Mercury this week, because Mercury comes into an air sign. It will leave Virgo, where it has its domicile and exaltation, and it will move into Libra, the air sign Libra. That happens on Monday. That happens on Monday at really 7 a.m. here in Central Europe. So very early in the week, we lose the stellium in Virgo. And I think it's nice that I started that introduction with a reminiscence on the earth sign and that Virgo stellium, because we're losing focus maybe on the kind of planning side of Mercury in Virgo and the detail orientation around the physicality and materiality. We lose that. And we have one less planet in Virgo. We don't have that stellium there anymore. And what we'll have is Mercury joining Venus in Libra. It's an awesome transition in some ways, because it's more air focused. And we're going to explore air signs, the air trigon, what those mean here in the talk today. But the thing about Mercury in Libra is it's a sign where Mercury will spend over 2 months this late summer and fall in Libra. It will have a full cycle of retrograde and retrogradation in Libra. So get ready, because Mercury in Libra is going to be a huge story for them until early November. And this placement will be part of the context for everything that's going to happen for the rest of Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius, for much of the rest of that, because Jupiter enters Pisces, re-enters Pisces at the end of December. But a good chunk of that time that Jupiter and Saturn are co-present in Aquarius for this final time, we'll have Mercury in this trine relationship to those two great planets, the great benefic, the greater benefic, and the greater malefic. So it's a big part of our story of this next season. And the other thing I want to say is that this sign-based trine, I've just said it, but I have it in my notes here, is active for over 2 months, so worth exploring deeply. We'll do that in this talk. We're going to talk all about Saturn and Mercury and how they interact and can be mutually beneficial. Because, and I'll just say it here first off, out of the gate, they are part of the air trigon, the two rulers. So in the ancient astrological system, each of the elements is assigned a group of 3 planets that rule that element. But only 2 of those 3 actually become the predominant ruler, and it changes. During the daytime, you have one of the planets as a predominant ruler, and then during the nighttime, one of the planets takes over as the predominant ruler for that element. And the air element, those 2 planets are Saturn during the daytime rules the air signs, and Mercury at night rules the air signs. So they have this special tandem kind of teamwork relationship for triplicity rulership is what we call it, or element rulership. And so they're interacting and working together here in air signs, and it's a deep and profound relationship, and one that's highly relevant for our age. I will probably write an article about this because it's as important as any part of the astrological symbol set for the next 140 years, because we have Jupiter and Saturn conjunctions only in air signs until 2059, I think is the date where you get one in Scorpio. But so the air element is highly significant for this moment of time that we're in the world. And I do want to write a lot more about that. But in this particular week of astrology, in this particular season, we have this air trigon highly active. So we'll explore that in the video more deeply. I don't want to do it too much here because I want to say some of it for the specific chart we're going to look at. But I will say it here, I will say this here, Venus is in Libra right now in the air sign that it rules. Saturn is in Aquarius, the air sign that it rules. And Mercury rules by domicile Gemini, but Mercury coming into Libra, it's also ruling by triplicity Libra. And so you have the 3 domicile rulers of the air element, the zodiac signs that are assigned to the air element, Gemini, Aquarius, and Libra. All of those rulers have some power right now and are in air signs. Starting here Monday, Jupiter comes now into Mercury coming into Libra. So it's very airy, and the element of air is very much in focus. I think I said that now 2 or 3 times, but I can't underscore it enough. It's the big theme of the week. Also, Mercury is visible and strong this week because it's in that later phase of its retrograde cycle, that later phase before it basically dies and goes into the underworld during its retrograde. So you can see Mercury. You might get that twinkle of Mercury in the when the sun goes down in the western horizon, a little twinkle. That can be a special exchange because Mercury is so hard to find. But I think here about relationships, connection, communication, new rules, all of the Saturn, Venus, Mercury blends that you can think of. Those are here this week, and there's a real opportunity for it. Venus being love, connection, relationships, pleasure. Mercury, thoughts, details, analysis, intellect, books, writing. And those combined, we can kind of love and find pleasure in the idea set. And then Saturn being the more serious energy and the more deep structures. So Libra and air signs, they have a real serious edge. They're not, in the tarot tradition, often the air, the swords, which we correspond to air in many correspondence systems, have a rougher edge. And that's because we're dealing with, particularly in Libra, there's just a lot of planets that are active there with dignity. And so you have that serious kind of tricksterism within the Venus, which can also be a serious energy. We talked about last week, the pleasure and the defense of pleasure, how because of desire, we will do things like defend our desires. We'll lie to get things, we will, separate from people because of grudges and because of our ideas about who we think people are. I mean, this has a real serious edge. And so we're diving into the deep end with that. And these planets are dignified, so I think there's real opportunity here to enjoy the best of those potentials, which can be things like agreements that set up relationships, through language and getting clear in writing what commitments people are making to each other. That's Venus, Saturn, and Libra all combined. Venus, Mercury, and Saturn all combined, of course, in Libra and Aquarius. So there's real opportunity to make deep connections. And I'll keep exploring this a lot as we get into the charts, but that's what's happening with the planets this week. Mercury into Libra on Monday at 7 a.m. and then on Sunday, Mercury will perfect the trine with Saturn. That happens at 3 a.m. here in Central Europe. I'm not going to say much more about that because I've just talked about it. The chart we will look at in detail. So let's go on, let's move. Now we'll come to the moon's sign transits this week. It's a very interesting and powerful week for this waning moon. You know, we're settling and waning still. The new moon in Virgo comes very early next week, but it's for Central Europe, it's technically going to be next week after midnight on that Monday midnight marker. So I'm going to save it for next week. Come to my video next Sunday. I've been releasing them basically in the morning for North America or in the early afternoon here for Central Europe. And you'll have it all Sunday and then into Monday to listen to that. And I'll set the context for that new moon, which kicks off next week. But for this week, the moon doesn't quite get new. And I want to say here, it's powerful. It's this waning energy. We had, remember those 3 syzygies in Aquarius that we just finished, that second full moon. And now we're settling in. I felt the energy shift. I felt it be less maybe dramatic with the fixed axis not being activated by those 3 syzygies. Excuse me. Now we're really settling in, I think, to what Saturn, Jupiter, and Aquarius will be for this final stretch. And I'm, you know, when an energy shifts in astrology, we do adjust to it, and I think that adjustment has taken place for me. If you think about late June, and now here we sit in late August, and the adjustments that have happened globally, all the events that have taken place, I feel like the context has been set up, and now we're in this sort of still a mutable season, but we're on the other side of the bigger kind of spark or shift that happened with the fixed axis, like I said, getting so activated. I've talked so much about that, I'm going to shift out of it. The point here being just that this waning moon can be a settling, resting energy, just to again continue with, oh, that's over. The fixed activations are complete and finished. And maybe just think about how you can heal, how you can rest. You know, Cancer, where the moon will spend much of Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. This Cancer moon is some of the most potent cardinal energy that we have had all year, and it's a waning moon. And so I think there's great opportunity to settle into the home of your new reality, the physical home, but even the emotional home of just where you are and where you've arrived at in 2021, what you've gone through in 2021, and just settle in a little bit of rest here midweek. The Gemini moon kicks off the week, and that will trigger the sign, the air element. Everything I just talked about gets triggered with the moon in Gemini here at the beginning of the week. The moon enters Gemini this weekend where I am now. And actually, I think the moon is not quite there yet. I'll just check it. We're recording here. The moon comes into Gemini tomorrow, and it comes in. Yeah, we're still in that middle decan of Taurus as I record this video. The moon comes into Gemini late tomorrow, so we get a lot of the Gemini moon, the 30th, the 31st, and then into Wednesday. We'll have that big Gemini moon to start the week. Remember, Mercury comes into Libra on Monday, so we get this air trine. If you add the moon, this sign-based air trine with 4 of the 7 traditional planets here on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Tuesday may being the more of that, because all day Tuesday you'll have that sign-based air trine with those 4 traditional planets. So again, it underscores the importance of this shift into the airy side, the thinking, the thought, the ideas. You know, maybe you get into some of the mind games that we can play. Mental stimulation can feel really, really good. I've had a friend here the last couple of weeks an acquaintance that I was put in touch with, and we've just been going out and drinking coffee. They're drinking alcohol. I don't drink alcohol, but the mental stimulation has been very pleasurable. And that's been my Venus and Libra transit, just engaging with ideas at a very high level, and the words and the exchange of ideas. I think that will continue into early next week with this 4-planet stellium moon in Gemini. Then we get the moon in Cancer, which I already talked about, settling into some of the Cancerian body nurture. How do you want to nurture yourself to wane into this new moon moment where we start a new lunation cycle at the beginning of next week? This week, this midweek period, I think, can bring a real centering of nurture, care, love as we rest into that seeding and that new lunation cycle that will kick off, like I said, next week. But this week is really a potent, restful, seeding energy. And then we end the week with a Leo moon. So the moon will now return and will cover the ground where Mars, Mercury, Venus, and the Sun all just traveled through this summer to oppose Saturn, and then some oppositions with Jupiter. The moon now will hit those degrees. So maybe there's a little bit of a bump or a reactivation. And this Leo moon, we'll see, there's a chart I want to look at in this Leo moon that I think is special and unique. So let's move. Let's go to the chronological list of charts I want to look at. The first one will be this Monday, 7 a.m., 7:10 a.m., here where I am. The Mercury enters Libra. Words and thoughts, that's Mercury. And this is one way you can delineate any planet in a sign. What is the significations of the transiting planet? What are the significations of the planet that rules the sign? You just combine them. And you could just do a whole astrology like that. In fact, I do work with that as kind of a groundwork of my astrology. I layer in other sign significations too that can be quite important as well, but that's one way to just do it. So you have words and thoughts, that's Mercury, and then relationships and pleasure, that's Venus. You combine them, and it's just what I've been talking about, relationships with others using language, or the pleasure of wordplay, how we can think sometimes and feel satisfied with the thinking, or the beauty of a thought. I mean, just the fact that we can even think. I mean, I can close my eyes and see words, and new words come, inspiration through language. Or my favorite, I talk about this a lot, just get my word processor open and just start writing things. See what wants to emerge through the word set and through the sentence structures. That is very much a pleasurable thing for me, or it can be. Sometimes it's a little tedious, but it can feel really, really good. I think this Mercury and Libra transit can be very potent for our linguistic skills and our linguistic powers. There's poetry, filmmaking, letter writing, expressions of feeling, beauty of language. I think about Mercury and Venus combinations as poetic filmmaking for our modern context, because the filmmaker, it's a visual art, which right away puts it with Venus, because Venus is the sweet colors in the ancient text. It's what we see that's beautiful. And when you make a film, I mean, there's photographers you hire, the cinematographer that is designed to make the shots pretty. So that's Venus, but then you have editors, you have script writers, you have a linguistic component. That's a very tedious, if you edit a movie, it's quite tedious. So but it's Mercury and Venus combined to produce this art of film that I love, and that I think many in my generation love, and many humans alive in this day and age. We're kind of losing a little bit of that, I think, with streaming services and with theaters being closed for the last little bit. I love just going to sit in the theater and shutting everything out and just watching the film in total silence. It's kind of a trigger for me. One of the things I do get triggered about is when people talk in movie theaters. But that's Saturn. I want total silence and separation. Mercury and Venus, that's the film, and the communication that happens with the audience of the film. It's so much an air element act, is witnessing a film in a theater. So that's one combination of Saturn, Mercury, Venus. Like I talked about earlier, they're all strong in the air element now, very much an air element moment. And so again, I want to say Mercury will move backwards in Libra. It will be in Libra until I think it's 5th November. But you have Mercury very much saturating itself in this sign. All of the things I just spoke about, these are also ripe for being the subject of your Mercury retrograde story, which could bring blocks or delays or uncertainty or reconfiguration around the arts and the poetry, the filmmaking, the relationships, the pleasure with words. So it's in the one hand a like I love this Mercury and Libra energy, particularly with the configurations of Mercury and Libra this year. But with the retrograde, sometimes the love can maybe have obstacles. So I think by the time we get through in November 5th and Mercury comes into Scorpio, hopefully, and this is how I think about retrogrades at their best, the blocks and delays are designed to help us reconfigure our relationship to ourselves and our lives and our charts. So hopefully having an optimistic head or an optimistic frame for whatever this retrograde will teach you, I think is a useful way. But just know thematically, it's relating to Mercury and Libra and the things that I've just spoken about. The next thing I will just say here, Mars will join in mid-September. So Venus first leaves, I think it's 10th of September, then Mars comes in a few days later. The character of Mercury and Libra changes dramatically. It's more aggressive, there's more of a solar tonality, because Mars and the Sun will be with Mercury. There's a transit in October where all three, the Sun, Mercury, and Mars, will join in the 17th degree of Libra, or 16 degrees Libra. And the Sun and Mars are very uncomfortable in Libra, and Mercury will be there with them. I think Mercury will have a lot of responsibility once Venus leaves. It takes over as the main ruler that's co-present there. And you know, Mercury, and it's during the retrograde, there is going to be a lot more responsibility piled on this Mercury, and talk about getting a lot more serious once Venus leaves. I think we'll see some really interesting stuff happen there in October. Not here yet. I'll talk all about it when it comes in my weekly astrology video at that time. The last thing I'll just say, Jupiter will make a trine this whole transit. It's trining Libra by sign. And so you have the support that Jupiter can give, which Jupiter's not very well positioned right now to do very much. It's subsumed by Saturn, and it's very kind of hemmed in by that Saturnine force of Aquarius. So I'm thinking it's more Saturn, Mercury, Venus energy, or Saturn, Mercury energy, but you do have that tone of Jupiter and that little tad bit of Jupiter. Sometimes that's enough to win the day and to make things a little bit easier. So remember, you have that going on. Libra, Aquarius, relationships and thoughts and words and agreements and setting the rule set for relations with others and for pleasure, making a supportive trine to Aquarius, new rules, implementation of new structures, new ideas with Jupiter there, but that can maybe be sustainable, or implementation of older ideas reformulated for the present moment. And then of course Saturn coming in to implement and restrict and radically kind of change things. So that can be, you can think about that. The new rules maybe in society or in your life. I mean, we're all in a so-called new normal. That experience that you're having with the changes in the outer world, maybe it's time to be a little bit more personal with those during these transits through Libra and that supportive trine. Okay, let's go. That's the Monday 7 a.m. chart here in Central Europe. If we go now to the next chart, I want to examine Thursday, 2nd September. This is going to be 9 in the morning where I am. But it's this Cancer moon. It's my transit of the week. I love this Cancer moon. I've been looking at this chart, this Cancer moon chart, for months. I've had this chart teed up. I think this is a wonderful time to experience both the Venus energy, but also the lunar energy, and how the Venus-Moon combos can interact here. Remember, Venus with Earth, with water signs, Venus has a special triplicity relationship with those water signs. During the daytime, Venus will rule Cancer by triplicity. And there's a part of this transit where the moon will be in the Egyptian term of Venus, and in these middle degrees, and then the Egyptian term of Mercury. Both Venus and Mercury are in Libra. So there's an exchange here with Mercury, with Cancer and Libra, a unique special exchange vis-a-vis the rulership arrangement. But more than anything, these cardinal energies, all cardinal signs, are safe. No aspect to Mars, no sign-based Ptolemaic aspect to Mars. Now we could count in Antisha and contra Antisha or counter Antisha. That is a degree-based focus here, and in this chart we do not have an antishal relationship to Mars or to, and then there's trines to Saturn. So we're dealing with, and nothing with the antisha to Saturn. So there's this safety from Mars and Saturn, which, as you all know who listen, I always prioritize that when I look for transits of the week. I love this moon. The lunar nodes are immutable signs. The moon is averse to the lunar nodes. We're not getting the eclipse intensity here. This is a settled energy for resting in the sign of home and nourishment, like I had spoken about before. But thinking about Cancer, who are you mothering? Who comes to you so you can mother? Who do you go to when you need mothering? And maybe it's ourselves. We mother ourselves, but very much an important part of this transit. And then the Libra placements and this strong Venus in Libra. The moon in this chart, in this particular chart, is applying to Libra as its next aspect. And so you have a Libra activation with Venus in Libra. It really gives the pure, maybe a pure form of Venus in Libra here with a lunar activation. What is Venus in Libra? Like I said, thoughts and beauty and language and pleasure. It's agreements, the container for love. You know, it's hard to experience the depth of love when there isn't consistency too in a relationship. I think that's where Saturn being exalted in Libra comes in. You are with someone over 20 years, and this could just be friends. I mean, I have friends I've known for 20, 25 years. We love each other. There's a kind of a quality to that love that I could never have with someone that I just met last week. I mean, just impossible, because I know that longevity and that the experiences of being with each other and showing up for each other, and the contexts and the inside jokes, if you want to add the mercurial side to it. There's an unspoken communication that happens on an energetic and spiritual level that comes with longevity. This is sort of the best of the Libra and Venus energy. Libra is also, Venus signifies beautification and beauty, and maybe you want to put music on, or maybe like math rock, or the music that can stimulate the mind. I like to work with electronic music. I do drone electronic music, ambient electronic music. That's, I think, very much a Venus and Libra energetic. But yeah, I think so. Venus here is in a communicative mood. Maybe writing on your shirt, these shirts that I always wear clothes that are plain. I don't like to be an advertisement for anybody, but I can see it's a kind of communication, very Saturn communication, simple, stripped down uniform that I wear. But there's all kinds of ways to communicate with how we beautify. I mean, I have a watch on. This sends communication. People that know watches might see what this means. I've got, we're always communicating with how we wear our hair. I mean, I know where I am, and now beards and long hair were banned for men in much of the 70s and 80s. And so it's a kind of a political thing. Culturally, it's totally fine now, but I'm sending a message here that it's like free. I want to be free with my appearance in a way. So that's just for me. Think about how you're communicating with the appearance and the beautification. That's very much a part of Venus and Libra. What do you want to say? How are you going to say it with what you put on or wear? All right, let's shift out of here. So just take advantage of this waning transit. Remember, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. This is on Thursday here, but I think Wednesday evening into Thursday, you get this sweet, 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 sweet moon, and applying to Venus. Enjoy it. My transit of the week. Okay, the next chart I want to look at here, Sunday, 5 September 2021. This is at very early Sunday morning, 3:30 a.m. You have 3 planets by this time this week in their own Egyptian term. By the way, Mars enters its term in Virgo on Wednesday. Friday sees both Mercury and Venus in their own Egyptian terms, and that lasts through the weekend. And so we're set up here for a weekend with 3 planets with term dignity. Term dignity is the same as domicile dignity on some important level. Okay, and my essay's coming well. I've just moved through my research. Now I'm getting into the actual writing phase. I'm hoping maybe I've been saying end of the year. I'm going to stick with that. I want to get it done sooner. because I'm learning and really delving into the textual basis for why I consider the term so important, and it's really crystallizing my own thoughts about that technique and why I use it and why I mean, I've read this stuff before, so I knew how important it was, but really with a fine-tooth comb now and presenting the ideas and having to reframe them to share them, all I can say, so the point I just made, these terms, the Egyptian terms, are as important as domicile rulership. If I could do one thing with my astrology career, that would be something I hope to do, is inject that into the astrological world, so that people take the terms seriously, because they're very potent, powerful, and ancient in our tradition. But this weekend you have 3 planets strong, so you'll get Mars in Virgo, very powerful in its own Egyptian term. It protects it from being under those sun's beams. So this little bit of Mars in Virgo, I think we can reinvigorate some action here. Maybe some of that planning side will get reinvigorated and support some of the choices you're making. You'll have, again, Mercury quite powerful now, and Venus quite powerful in Libra. So everything I've said, it's just, you can just underline even more of an opportunity this weekend for that air trigon energy, particularly Mercury, Venus, trine to Jupiter and Saturn. And in this chart, the Jupiter-Saturn trine does not perfect until next week, but both Venus and Jupiter are in an applying trine, and both Mercury and Saturn are in an applying trine. So it really gives us this weekend the trine between Aquarius and Libra that I've already spoken about, between the 2 benefic planets and then Saturn and Mercury, the 2 planets that rule air signs. I think this is some sweet energy and some sweet air element energy. I bet we're going to pull some tarot cards that relate to the air element. And so here I was just thinking about the container for language that syntax and grammar is. That's the Saturn and Mercury combinations. You know, I could just say things like just make sounds with my voice box and my vocal cords, but you can't understand it. We understand the sounds that we can make because of language. That is a long standing thing. Language doesn't change very fast. It changes over hundreds of years. You know, I can pick up Shakespearean English and see, yeah, this is radically different. I can still understand a lot of it though. That's how powerful Saturn is in air signs. That's why Saturn and Mercury join together to create something as powerful as language that lasts. And, you know, you can think about so that's one of the most important metaphors, I think, to understand the Saturn and Mercury teamwork in their rulership, their co-rulership of air signs. You know, even like in subcultures, like the astrology world, I just released a video this week about the astrology community. Part of that was that it's a subculture we have our own language. I mean, I tweet sometimes and people respond, I wish I could understand this, you know, and I'm tweeting for, you know, astrology enthusiasts and other astrologers, some of my tweets. But we have a language that we understand, and that allows for the relationship. So that's the Venus role in the air sign, a shared language. But then also you can build upon a language. So that's how, you know, like I could pick up a Dan Rudyard book or a Ptolemy book translated into English. I understand it. This language that astrologers have has lasted for thousands and thousands of years. So that's what having a grammar and a syntax and a language, when you write that down, like again, Mercury would be the writing, but when you use Saturn with Mercury, you put it in a book or a clay tablet, and it can last for thousands of years. Those tablets from Babylon that we have, those cuneiform tablets, that's Mercury and Saturn combined in a very potent way. So you might want to think about during this week and these air sign activations, you know, what are you doing now for long-lasting communicative force? You know, maybe you can write some things down and put them on your wall, and they'll be with you during the rest of this fall. That's the Saturn, an idea that maybe has some legs. And then the Mercury, you're writing it down there, and make it beautiful. Maybe make a heart or a flower drawing on your art. So, you know, the other thing here is data and thought inform and are used by the structures. And you can think of politically here, this is really easy to understand. I mean, governments rule by controlling information. If they lose control of the information flow, they lose control of their power. That's why in all of the texts you read, like Lao Tzu and others, they always say control information. You have to do that. And you can fight whole wars just by using Mercury, and you can win the war. And I think that's a particularly potent or apropos metaphor or analogy or connection with Mercury now in Virgo. You can think about acting just through the word set, the mind set, the reality frames, the structures of how we view things. That's all the data that we want to produce and send out. The thoughts, the symbols. I think about Winston Churchill that had that V for victory. They said that was a magical thing that he learned. And he was controlling the media flow about and sending this message of power when Britain was at its weakest there in 1940. So we can very much use Mercury to structure and control structures, and that's a quite important part of the Mercury-Saturn relationship. And they're trining here, so this is a flowing, easygoing, energetic. Where there might be some real breakthroughs or opportunities. Okay, the final chart I'm going to move is the 5th of September, same day. So this was on Saturday at 3 a.m., the Mercury-Saturn trine. This happens about 3 p.m., about 12 hours later. Look at this moon, really awesome moon here. This moon will separate from a sextile from Venus in Libra, and then it applies to oppose Jupiter in Aquarius. So this moon activates the Libra-Aquarius trine relationship all day Sunday. It's there with a sextile and opposition relationship to those two signs. The moon as an activator underscores what I had just said about the Mercury-Saturn trine, but this is a bona fide moon, bona fide by benefic closure. I love seeing this moon. And I just want to use it a little bit here to close the talk, to explore that Leo energy. That's how one way I've been using the lunar bonifications is to explore the lunar mansions and the significations of the signs that those lunar mansions teach us. This is a lunar mansion, Al-Sarfa, that is mostly in Leo, but some of it extends into Virgo. So when you have these mansions that are comprised of two signs, you can get a blend sometimes of the Virgo-Leo energy. And this is a good example of it. Lunarium.co.uk, my favorite lunar mansions website. There's a word that I'm missing here, an amalgamation of different writers on the mansions, and then it sort of synthesizes the information and prints it here. But good for gardening, agriculture, and building. That's probably some of the Virgo. With Mars and Virgo, building, that's Mars with tools, and then gardening is the earth sign. I think it's a great moment for, just in general, not looking at this transit here, but Mars and Virgo, great time for building. Here it says sending messages, service, and work for others. But what is it not good for? Marriage, not good for personal relationships. Its essence is conflict and confrontation, obstacles, rich harvest. Warnock here, when the moon passes into this mansion, it signifies conflict and confrontation, argument, and strife with others. And I just wanted to say here, sometimes that Leo fixed energy can be argumentative. It requires argument, because it's a fixed fire sign. So it's a passion, it's the solar consciousness, but it's fixed. And sometimes that Leo energy doesn't budge. And we're forced to then sort of combat as we enter into the world with our Leo-ness. And there's pushback, and we're trying to maintain that fixed position with identity. So, with a bona fide moon, it means that there's real opportunity here. I would think about if confrontations and conflicts come up. You see, now we're back in this air trine, which is so potent, with Venus connecting through relationship, Mercury communication, and Saturn structure with relationship. And so it's a real opportunity. I think arguments can be invitations to renegotiate. And conflict is actually the best thing sometimes there is for relationships, because it provides an opportunity to reconfigure and it's best through language. It's like, okay, we just had something there. Is this a good time to talk about it? And this is how I felt, and this is what I thought was happening. This is why I said what I did. Someone else can receive that. Yeah, I hear you. Thanks for sharing that. This is what I was feeling. This is what. Sometimes just that type of communication, very Libran, and very Saturnine, which is the exaltation ruler of Libra, because it sets up mutual understanding that will then create new plateaus of connection in a relationship. And all relationships reach kind of loggerheads where you do that enough and then things don't change, and then you maybe have to end a relationship or commit in a new way. It's like, okay, me and this person just can't get along. I'm not going to hang out with them as much. That's also Saturn, the separation that can come from mutual understanding when a conflict arises, and it's beneficial to separate. in relationships sometimes. I think I talked about that a little bit last week. So this is that bona fide moon. There may be a chance here to kind of get your fixed identity, but then use that air trine and that air energy to kind of negotiate in a conflict in a way that can be auspicious. All right, that's the weekly astrology. Thank you. This is S.J. Anderson. Let's pull some tarot cards and let's get this weekly tarot settled. And let's see how many air element cards are going to be pulled, because this week is, like I said, significantly about the air element. Or maybe it's kind of cool sometimes when it goes the opposite, when instead of the astrology being so focused on one element, sometimes these cards come up and say, well, hey, look at this other element that maybe I forgot to talk about. So the first card is, okay, let's check it. The first card is, let me just get here. I got to get a better, my desktop, I've got always got so much going on that sometimes my quick access to the information I'm looking for. Where is that folder? Where did that go? Give me 1 second here. Maybe I can chat while I'm looking to find this. I will chat with, so did that just shift out? Yeah, that's crazy. That shifted out. Well, this is what we're going to do this week. Instead of my playing card deck that I use, we are going to do 2 Tarot Marseille. So sorry about that. Let me get the first card, Tarot Marseille. We'll see how this kind of changes the weekly astrology this week, because I've got that file right here ready to go. So the first card is the, where is this? Okay, boom, it's the Star card. Okay, so right out of the gate, this is Aquarius. The star signifies and relates to Aquarius. You know, I love the star symbolism looking at this here, because this is Venus. You might think this beautiful woman here kneeling down is Venusian for sure. I see that, a naked woman, definitely Venus. And this to me expresses, though it corresponds to Aquarius in our system, Venus plays a role in the air trigon because it's domicile rulership of Venus, and in Libra, like I've said twice already, Saturn is exalted. Saturn rules Aquarius. So we're kicked in here now to everything I've talked about with the air trigon and Saturn, Mercury, and Venus being powerful this week, and all in air signs. Setting aside the astrology here, I mean, thinking about Aquarius, this is in the first position of the recent past. This has been coming up on Twitter in the last couple of days. Aquarius. Tell me about Aquarius in your life, you know, or maybe in the comments if you want to, but tell yourself about it. Saturn entered Aquarius March 2020. Saturn then went back into Capricorn, re-entered Aquarius December 2020. Saturn is going to be in Aquarius all of 2021 and all of 2022. This is the defining energetic of our moment, of our current moment in time. And sometimes I'm just feeling this right now. It's good to just sit and think. We're in the midst of all the choices we're making and all the dynamic things going on in life. Just sitting and thinking like, wow, stopping and saying, wow, I'm living through Saturn in Aquarius. And the last time I lived through this was in the early 90s. It was a lot different. I was not an adult, I was a child. But it's once every 30 years that Saturn comes through a sign, only once. And so we only get to live through, you know, as an adult, maybe 2 of Saturn in a sign. And so I'm just like, wow, I get to live through this, because as an astrologer, I'll be pulling from these experiences the rest of my life, thinking about what Saturn in Aquarius was. It's helped me, and I think the collective, understand what Aquarius is, which is its newness. It's technology with the air element. We didn't talk any about that. Maybe I should have in the video. But it's new rules. It's new normals, right? It's new strictures, new structures, new restrictions. And I don't think there's anything, any zodiac sign that's more representative of what we've just gone through in 2020 and 2021. It is quintessential Aquarian. So just reflecting on that for yourself. What's your life been like 2020, 2021? Where are you with the changes in the reality? How are you doing and how are you coping? I love this because it's the beauty that can come from acceptance, integrating into new structure. But this woman is kneeled down. She's decided to stay herself grounded within a moment. And I think that the grounding to the earth is a way to, just the pictorial symbol here is a way to be with the air element, which can be so cerebral and so difficult at times. Grounding with that earth And then she's got her water pouring that down. So you almost have, you have the earth and the water element there combined with air. And Venus rules earth sign, Taurus. Mercury also rules an earth sign. So those are the two planets that their domicile assignments are air and earth. And I think this card can be symbolic or representative of how air and earth can work together to ground each other. And they can play off each other. So that's Saturn and Aquarius. That is the star card. Let me get the second card. Okay, the second card is the Sun, I believe here. Yep, it's the Sun. No, it's it is. Pardon me. It's the Sun. No, it is the Sun right here. I thought so. It's 18, 19, 20. Yeah, in the sequence. This is the 17th trump, and this is the 19th trump. And you know, what do we think about the Sun? What can we say about the Sun right now? It's in Virgo season. Maybe this is pointing us to just had this whole discussion about the Leo energetic and the solar energetic with that bona fide moon coming up here on Sunday. You know, maybe it's pointing us to that. How is your Leo? How are you doing with your self identity and your sense of who you are? I think it fits with the star because these are both fixed signs in the sense that the Sun rules Leo. This is not the card that corresponds to Leo. That is the lust card or the strength card. But this is the planet that rules Leo. And so there's something about the fixed energy here. And I think if we just think about the Sun, how are you doing with your sense of identity? Your selfhood, is your light getting up to shine in the midst of this mutable Virgo season and now this heavy cerebral thinking air moment? Where's your inner light? And I think just checking in and making sure, like, okay, I am a child of God. If I like that phrase, but child of God in quotes, if you like another one. But I do have kind of a divine spark in me. I do have value. I do have light that I can radiate to others. Important to remember that always. So maybe think about that going into this week, grounding your cerebral, airy energy with some kind of inner light or inner fire, making sure that doesn't get snuffed out. Because that's also a risk with the heavy thinking, is that we lose sense of kind of the intuitive or maybe the passion that can come from instinct, physical instinct. So let's not lose that this week. Okay, so that is the weekly astrology. This is S.J. Anderson. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming to my channel. You can support me by liking and subscribing the video. You can always go to my website, sjanderson144.com, and schedule an astrology reading, a tarot reading, or you can support my Patreon. Helps keep the videos going. Have an awesome day. Talk soon.